George Clooney and Brad Pitt's new movie, Wolves, is on Apple TV Plus September 27th.
That's where I want you to be now.
So if you want to see George Clooney and Brad Pitt, go to Apple TV Plus.
You got to start the story there.
Or if you want to see Brad Pitt and George Clooney, go to Apple TV Plus.
I am enjoying the show.
And if you want to see their new movie, Wolves,
You can't do it, I'm going to help you out. I can do it, so do it.
definitely go to Apple TV Plus.
Admit it is cool. Okay, fine, it was very cool.
Wolves, streaming September 27th on Apple TV Plus. Rated R.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger for thousands of appetizing ingredients that inspire countless mouthwatering meals. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices. Plus, extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week and up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with points. So you can get big flavors and big savings. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
This episode is brought to you by Microsoft Azure. Turn your ideas into reality with an Azure free account. Get everything you need to develop apps across cloud and hybrid environments, scale workloads, create cloud-connected mobile experiences, and so much more. Discover what you can create with popular services free for 12 months. Learn more at azure.com. That's AZURE.com. And sign up for a free account to start building in the cloud today.
Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our Quick Publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Red, your lunchtime catch-up on all things Liverpool FC on a Thursday where we're preparing to re-enter Premier League action this weekend as the Reds take on Bournemouth, hoping to get back to Premier League winning ways after a good victory in Europe during the week, kind of wash some of the stink off the defeat to Nottingham Forest. I think this is going to be a good game at the weekend. I think it's two good footballing teams. I very much like what Bournemouth are building. I like the manager. I like a lot of the players. I think there's a few players in that squad that we should be keeping an eye on with a view to the long term. But we can talk about that more tomorrow. There's a scouted about it. There's a rival recon coming about that game too. But for now, let's dig into the main Liverpool sites. And this is Anfield. Have a really interesting piece up. Every Liverpool manager's first debutant since the dawn of the Premier League era. So Federico Chiesa became the first player to make the Liverpool debut under Arne Slot. And this is Anfield have gone back in time, a little bit of nostalgia, and taken a look at who else made their debuts as the first debutant for each Liverpool manager. Now, they start with Roy Evans. So for Roy Evans, it was John Scales. And I think John Scales has unfortunately become very underrated historically among Liverpool fans, largely because he was stuck playing in a defence with Neil Ruddock and Phil Babb, neither of whom were particularly good. Babb had obviously had a great World Cup, but people just ignored the fact that he was playing next to Paul McGrath, who carried him through that World Cup. Babb never looked as good again as he did at that World Cup, and neither did Gary Kelly, who played right back for Ireland. McGrath, in between the two of them, one of the best centre-backs of all time, elevated both of them considerably, very similar to what we see Virgil doing with a lot of players these days. But Scales was good. And we signed him from Wimbledon, where he'd been for 7 years. Now, he's from Yorkshire. He'd come through the Leeds Academy. He moved on to Bristol Rovers. He played a couple of seasons there. Went to Wimbledon. Was absolutely exceptional for them. Was absolutely exceptional for them. And was very highly regarded when we signed him. Now, he was 28 when we signed him as well, so he was very experienced. Came in having played a lot of football for Wimbledon and been part of their journey up through, from upstarts, I suppose, on to established Premier League team. And I do often think if he had played more frequently with Mark Wright, I think he likely stays longer, and I think he's viewed far more favourably because Mark Wright was excellent. He just couldn't stay fit. Mark Wright was, at the time, probably a top 3 or 4 centre-back in the league when fit. The issue was he just couldn't stay fit. Like, when we got him from Derby, it was seen as a big coup to get him. But unfortunately, he just couldn't stay healthy. So Ruddock ended up playing an awful lot more than he should have, and Bab wasn't very good. But a Scales-Wright pairing would have been, I think, very, very good for us for a long time. Now, Scales decided after 2 years that he wanted to go back to London, but that might have just been to get away from Neil Ruddock and Phil Babb. I do think if he'd been partnering Mark Wright, and we'd gone, say, Rob Jones right back, Scales and Wright in the middle, we'd have been a left back short of a really good back four. We still would have had an issue with the goalkeeper because how we stuck with David James for so long, I'll never quite understand. But that would have been the basis for a team that could potentially have gone on and challenged for the title when you consider the attacking options we had. Fowler and McManaman being the two primary ones. Obviously, there's still Barnes, there's still Rush, but they're well past their peaks at that point, but still good squad players. Obviously, we bring in Collymore. I always did wonder what a Roy Evans team would have looked like if, let's say, he could have gone Wright and Scales, Jones at right back. Let's say Stiggen-Gibjorn to be at left back because we had him there. Then in midfield, if he'd gone with McAteer as a right-sided midfielder rather than a wing-back, I think he gets a lot more out of him. Maybe Berger comes in then and plays left of the four. I think, again, that gets more out of him. Redknapp in midfield. You'd still need a holding midfielder, which was a big problem for us all through the 90s. Other than the year Ince was good, and even then it was Paul Ince, and you just couldn't get on board with him. And then even if we went McManaman off Fowler and hadn't bought Collymore, which I think in hindsight, it would have been better if we hadn't bought Stan. As talented as he was, he obviously just didn't produce regularly enough. If we put that 8.5 million for Stan into a really good holding midfielder and a really good goalkeeper, you are a left-back upgrade away from a team that potentially challenges for major honours. Anyway, let's move on. For Gerard Houllier, it was Steven Gerrard. Steven Gerrard was Jed's first debutant. For Rafa Benitez, it was Djibril Cissé and Josemi. Now, Djibril Cissé was actually signed by Houllier in advance of the summer of 2004. Josemi was Rafa's kind of first signing. And he came in and looked decent to begin with, and then everybody realised he's actually painfully slow. Cissé had all the physical attributes you'd want. He was big, he was powerful, he was lightning quick, but he just didn't seem to have it between the ears, which was a shame. Which was a shame. For Roy, it was David Amu and Milan Jovanovic, and that kind of sums up what Roy's tenure would become at the club. I mean, Jovanovic was Rafa's parting gift to the club, and by parting gift, I mean it was 2 fingers up, because he gave him a contract that was far in excess of what that player was worth. And Jovanovic had been decent at other stops in his career. Like, it wasn't outrageous for us to sign him. It was just outrageous for us to give him the contract that Rafa agreed to give him. When you consider, he's played in Serbia, he's gone to Shakhtar Donetsk, he hasn't really made the grade there. He's gone to Lokomotiv Moscow, he's struggled there. Then he's gone to Standard Liège, and he's been really, really good for them. But it's the Belgian league. It's the Belgian league, and we're giving him a big-time contract. And we ended up stuck with him for 4 years. We kept him for a year, didn't we? And then we ended up getting rid of him. We only kept him for a year and we got rid of him. I don't know why I thought we kept him for 4 years. I think we might have had to pay him to go. I assume we had to pay him to go away. But yeah, I mean, Rafa definitely left us with a big steaming pile of shit in that one. Kenny's first was Luis Suarez. I mean, that's a hell of a debutant. Yeah, what a player. What an unbelievable player. For Rodgers, it was Fabio Borini. I think unfortunate is the term I'd use to describe his Liverpool tenure. So he comes in, he's been with Rodgers at Swansea. They knew each other from their time at Chelsea together in the academy. He's gone back to Italy. He's done really well with Roma. And we sign him, and he's 21. And Rodgers hypes him up. Like, he said he was a player that was going to get the fans on the edge of their seats. He said he was the best physical specimen he'd ever worked with, and all this kind of garbage. And then, obviously, early in his tenure with us, he dislocates his shoulder. And that just sort of set the tone. He did have a good loan at Sunderland and then went there permanently and was pretty decent. And then somehow ended up at AC Milan. He's currently playing with Sampdoria. Like, he's still going strong. He had a couple of good years in Turkey. But, yeah, he was just unfortunate. Rodgers created too much pressure and too much hype. He was only ever going to be a squad player for us. Bropples was Conor Randall, which is just kind of funny. Look, he was a solid, hard-working, to be kind, League One caliber right back. He's currently playing for Ross County. I believe he's captain there. He's still only 28. He spent a year playing in Bulgaria, which is just interesting. But he's carving out a good professional career for himself, and he's been at Ross County now, 4 years? This is year 5 for him. He's played 122 games for them so far. He's their club captain, so look, best of luck to him, but it's just kind of funny what heights we got to under Kloppo, and Conor Randall was the first player to be capped by, or to be given the debut by him. Let's see, Liverpool have now revamped Arne Slot's fitness staff, 1 hire, 2 new roles, and 1 promotion. So obviously Ruben Peters has come in. Dr. Jonathan Power has remained in his role as team doctor. And according to Training Ground Guru, has been joined by Dr. Amit Panu as first team doctor. Dr. Conal Murta is now the head of physical performance. Lee Nobes is head rehab physio, and Chris Morgan is head of performance physio. So they were already at the club there. They've just been kind of given internal promotions into new roles. That is interesting. Jordan Fairclough is the first team fitness coach. There's also Dr. Jack Addy, who is head of PDP fitness, and physical performance coach Ed Harper. Liverpool recently added another coach to their staff, Diogo Paiva. He's come in from Porto as the technical skill staff. So they are very slowly building the staff out around Arne. Obviously, when Jurgen left, quite a number left, and quite a few went with Linders to Red Bull Salzburg. And speaking of them, Stefan Bajcetic played for them last night in the Champions League. Bobby Clark did as well. Clark was absolutely shocking, to be honest. But there's a piece here, and this is Anfield, that says Stefan Bajcetic's stats were outstanding, but Salzburg debut ends in misery. This is why looking at stats and not watching a game is foolish. Yes, Bajcetic's stats for the game are relatively good. They're not outstanding. Like, let's be clear, they're not outstanding. But he was absolutely dreadful. And Sparta Prague ran through their midfield as if he wasn't there at all. And eventually Linders had to bring on Lucas Gornadot, who's still not fully fit or even close to it, just to get Bajcetic out of the number 6 position where he was getting steamrolled. The idea that he was a bright spot is just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. There was no bright spot for them in that showing. Absolutely none. The two of them just looked completely out of their depth. Both Bajcetic and Clark. They looked completely out of their depth. And that's against Sparta Prague. That's not against a top-level team. Pep and Linder's setup was a tactical mess. Liverpool may have a new rock-solid centre-back partnership to look forward to. Liverpool can boast a number of talented centre-backs in their academy, and Barry Lutis believes a rock-solid partnership could be forming. So, Amara Nallo and Williti Lucky. I think that's the name. Apologies. Lucky is definitely the surname. The pronunciation the first time. I'm going to go with Williti. So they played in the 0-0 draw with AC Milan's under-19s in the UEFA Youth League, and Lutis was full of praise for them afterwards about how well they defended together. So there's also Carter Pinnington, who's very, very highly regarded. And then there's the kid to come behind them. I think he's still only like 15. What was his name? The kid we got from Harvey Owen, the one we got from Wolves. People are very high on him as well. So, yeah, it does look like we've got a good crop of young centre-backs. Alvin Ayman that we brought in this summer from Wolves, he can also play centre-back, but people think he's definitely going to be more of a 6. So, yeah, all looking very positive for the long haul. Liverpool's next Champions League opponents frustrated with manager still winless. So we play Bologna next, and their season has not begun well. 3 draws, 1 defeat, and a 0-0 draw at home in the Champions League opener against Shakhtar Donetsk. They are missing some very important players, and obviously they did lose 2 vital players in the summer. They also lost a manager and brought in a new manager, Vincenzo Italiano, who had been at Fiorentina, where, to his credit, he had done, I think, a really good job in terms of stabilising them and building them back up, and he'd gotten them to the Europa Conference League final twice. Lost both times, but, you know, he did a solid job there. And I think when Bologna appointed him, they were hoping that he'd be able to carry on the work that Thiago Motta had done. I notice here he also lost the final of the Coppa Italia in 2023. So 3 cup defeats. That's tough to take. Anything else here on This Is Anfield? I think that's pretty much everything. There's still a lot of the post-match stuff from yesterday. Oh, why fan favourite Missy Kearns left Liverpool? This was probably the biggest surprise of the summer because she had been pushed quite hard by the women's team and trying to make her the scouser in the team, the local hero. And off she went to Aston Villa. Now, Matt Beard has said he believes that she will come back at some point, but she wasn't a regular starter for Liverpool last year, and she decided to go to Villa, where there was some openings because a couple of players had moved on. So fair play. If she wants to move on and wants to play regularly, there's absolutely no way you can criticise her. I think she achieved quite a lot playing for the club of her dreams, and now she gets to go and try somewhere else, and the door will always be open for her to come back. So, why not? Did notice a lot of hype on Twitter earlier because Trent and Virgil were pictured in full kits wandering around the training ground. People thought potentially we were going to get some announcements of contracts, but it is just the annual team photograph that is being done. So that's why they're doing that. Liverpool.com, Arne Slot faces Cody Gakpo decision as Liverpool dilemma emerges. There's no real dilemma here. Gakpo played really well during the week and deserves to stay in the team, but Luis Diaz has been playing really well this season and also deserves to stay in the team. Mo Salah's been playing really well and deserves to be in the team, and there's your front three. And Diogo Jota has not been playing well. So it's simple.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger for thousands of appetizing ingredients that inspire countless mouth-watering meals. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices. Plus, extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week and up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with points. So you can get big flavors and big savings. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
Liverpool's stance on Martin Zubimendi as midfielder wants January transfer. This is starting to rear its head again, the Zubimendi thing. I don't think the lines of communication were ever closed between Liverpool and the player. And I think it's fair to say that whatever promises he was made by Real Sociedad, they have not held up. They've also started the season dreadfully. So if he's up for the move in January, then I can't see any reason we wouldn't go back in for him. And I don't think Real Sociedad will have much of a chance of keeping him in January. Darwin Núñez and Federico Chiesa could soon get chance as Arne Slot faces next test. My guess is they'll both start in the West Ham game, that they'll come off the bench against Bournemouth and then start in the West Ham game. Jamie Carragher reveals why Trent Alexander-Arnold and Luis Suarez don't make all-time Liverpool 11. I saw his team. So I think he went Ray Clemens in goal. Now, I think that's fair. A lot of people obviously will just shout about Alisson. And if it's Alisson, I would go Alisson personally. But I do think it's absolutely fair to go Ray Clemens. I would go Trent right back, but I can see why people would go Phil Neal, who Carragher picked. The guy won 4 European Cups. Phenomenally successful. There's just no way to argue against Phil Neal. Trent is a better footballer than Phil Neal ever was, but Phil Neal was absolutely phenomenal for the club. Again, I would go Trent. He went Virgil and Hansen, and there's no argument to be had there. He's gone Stevie Nicol at left back. I would go even earlier and go Emlyn Hughes, but I think Stevie Nicol is one of the best players we've ever had, without question. But I would still just go Emlyn Hughes. Midfield, he went Mo on the right, Barnes on the left. Very hard to argue with that. He went Gerrard and Souness in the middle. Impossible to argue with the two players. Gerrard in the middle of midfield, never particularly great for us. Always better as a 10 or on the right. Now, that last season, the 13-14 season, he did have a very good run of games playing at the base of a midfield, but defensively a shambles. And it was a run of games. It wasn't a season. He was very poor, which is why Rodgers moved him back. And even in that run, there were a couple of stinkers, like Swansea at home. He was awful. But Gerrard undeniably gets in. I just wouldn't put him in central midfield. If in a 3, fair enough. You could go Gerrard, Souness, Barnes as a midfield 3. I think that's fine. It doesn't really matter. That's pedantics. Those 4 are absolutely in. Salah, Gerrard, Souness, Barnes. They're all in. There's just no debate. Up front, he went with Kenny, and again, have to be in. And he went with Ian Rush. Again, it's completely understandable because of his goal-scoring record and because of how important he was. There's just, no way to really look past Ian Rush. I would say, I believe Suarez is the best player we've ever had. In terms of the level he reached, I don't think anybody else has ever reached that level. But he wasn't at the club long enough to really consider. He just wasn't. But I still think Kevin Keegan over Rush for me. Like, I know it was after he left, but the guy was European Footballer of the Year. Twice. Kevin Keegan was a ridiculous player. And yeah, you can argue that, Kenny and Kevin isn't a great fit. But I still think they make it work. And again, this is not a team that's ever going to play together, so it doesn't really matter. I would say Keegan over Rush. But Dalglish and Rush was the pairing, wasn't it? Like Dalglish and Rush, very, very special pairing. But Keegan won 2 European Footballer of the Years. It's just very, very hard to look past that. And he was second. He went second, first, and first. Like, there's very few players in history that have won multiple Ballon d'Ors, and even fewer who've been in the top 2-3 times in a row. I'm inclined to say my all-time 11 would be Ali, Trent, Verge, Jockey, Amlin, Gerrard, Souness, Barnes, Salah, Kenny, Keegan in a 4-3-3. I think that's what it would be, to be honest. There would be a very short front 3, admittedly. Keegan's 5'8", 5'9". Salah, I think, is 5'9", and I'd be stunned if Kenny was any more than 5'9". It will be a very short team, but by God, they'd be good. But Carragher's logic is solid as to why he picked his team. Absolutely solid. John Barnes has hailed Dominic Szoboszlai as the closest thing to Steven Gerrard. That'll go down well in some quarters. There's been a few people who have taken quite a lot of joy in slagging off Dom in recent weeks. Liverpool hero, confirmed as new sporting director for European club after rejecting offers from others. Martin Skrtel has been appointed sporting director of DAC Donetsk in Slovakia. Fair play. Good for him. But if Martin Skrtel was one of your heroes, you need to get better heroes. I did also see an article, I think on the Echo, was it yesterday, maybe the day before, with my good friend, The Pebble, stating that Liverpool missed him more than he missed us. Now, his basis for this, I think, was like a message he claimed he got from Jurgen saying, "We miss you." Now, Jurgen loved dross, loved a bit of dross in his teams. At no point did we miss Martin Skrtel on the pitch. He was dog shit for Lyon, had a half a season at Southampton where he was good and a half a season where he was dreadful. Brendan Rodgers, being a fool, wasted 20 million on him, and he was dog shit for us for 6 years. He then went to Zenit St. Petersburg, had a decent first year, was garbage after that. They couldn't wait to get rid of him. Sent him to Lyon. He was garbage for them. And now, I think, isn't he going to Greece? Yeah, he's going to play in Greece. Lyon delighted to get rid of him with a year left of his contract. So nobody has missed you. Away to fuck. Pebble. On to AnfieldIndex.com. We're still boycotting Anfield Watch, by the way. Romano, why Liverpool refused midfielders' wage demands? I said, yeah, this is Adrian Rabiot. Because he would have only been a short-term fit and he wanted a multiple-year contract. There is a piece on Arne Slot and the need to rotate. There is a piece on Ryan Gravenberch. There is a tactical piece on the in-game changes made against Milan. Liverpool expect star player. Let's see. Report. Liverpool expect star player to leave. Oh, it's team talk, so we won't be paying too much attention to that. Podcast-wise, we have plenty on offer. There is the new Scouted. There is a new Scouser Tommies with Jim Boardman and Jay Reid. And if you've listened to Scouser Tommies before, you know it's excellent, so get your ears on that one. There is a new Media Matters, which is Dave Davis and Ben Boxak, so give that one a listen. And then there is a Euro incision. It's Nina Kauser and Guy Drinkle. They're rarely heard these days, Nina Kauser and Guy Drinkle. Nina does have a new podcast, if you haven't heard it. Herself and Ben Poscott are doing a pod on EPL Index every Sunday once the big game of the day is over. Once the Super Sunday game is over, they are jumping on and they are recording their pod, which comes out of a Sunday evening. Kevin De Vries decided to bring the EPL roundtable to an end this year. Just time commitments and just life in general getting in the way. So that show has now been replaced by Nina and Ben of a Sunday. So do check that out if you want to hear your favourite Mank. And she is everybody's favourite Mank because she's the only sound Mank. There are no other sound Mancunians. Not a single other one. So listen to Nina, listen to Ben, and listen to Nina and Guy. And I will see you all tomorrow. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at AnfieldIndex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.